afternoon. It's Monday, the 27th of February. I'm Yael Shir, and this is IBA News, broadcasting live from Jerusalem. Palestinian reports out of Gaza claim the Air Force has struck Hamas positions across the Gaza Strip this afternoon in apparent retaliation for the rocket fired from the Gaza Strip before dawn this morning. The reports claim the strikes occurred in several locations, including Rafia, the Nuseirat camp, Khan Yunis, and Beit Lahia. The army said 5 Hamas sites were destroyed in the airstrikes. In this morning's attack, the rocket exploded in an open area in the Sha'ar HaNegev Regional Council in the southern part of Israel. There have been no reports of damage or injury. The code red siren, which is sounded to warn residents of a pending rocket attack, was not activated as the rocket was fired towards an open area. Just last week, 2 rockets fired from the Sinai Peninsula exploded in open areas in southern Israel's Eshkol Regional Council. The Islamic State later claimed responsibility for launching the rockets. Security forces averted a suspected terror attack this afternoon near the Kalandia checkpoint north of Jerusalem. A 21-year-old Palestinian woman waving an unidentified object approached the crossing, which is intended for vehicles. Security forces shot the woman in the leg after she ignored their calls to halt. She was taken to a Jerusalem hospital with light injuries. Security forces have arrested 18 Palestinian suspects in overnight raids in Judea and Samaria. The army said 13 of the suspects detained are involved in terrorist activities and violent clashes with Israeli security forces. The arrest took place in Kifel Haret, Harez, Kafar Akeb, Azaria, Husan, Beitawa, and the Askar refugee camp. In Yatta, near Hebron, IDF soldiers and Shin Bet operatives uncovered a large amount of ammunition and Israeli army equipment that had been stashed underground. Officials in the Security Cabinet estimate there are currently at least 15 Hamas attack tunnels penetrating inside Israel. The details were released just a day before the publication of the State Comptroller's report relating to the tunnel threat and the Cabinet's decision-making process during Operation Protective Edge. Senior Cabinet officials, who asked to remain anonymous, told Channel 2 they have not ruled out the possibility that the number of tunnels constructed by the terrorist organization surpasses that amount. At the end of the Gaza war in 2014, the army said it had destroyed 32 Hamas tunnels, including 14 that crossed into Israel. In the past 2.5 years since the Gaza war, Hamas has devoted itself to renewing its military capability and has invested large sums of money in constructing new tunnels. A stream of disturbances occurred at the Western Wall in Jerusalem this morning. Police estimate between 1,000 and 2,000 female students from schools affiliated with the national religious Bnei Akiva movement, including Ulpana High School, showed up to prevent members of the organization Women of the Wall from praying at the holy site. The students physically blocked the entrance to the women's prayer section, and some interactions became violent. The women from the organization, who advocate for egalitarian prayer at the site, eventually managed to enter, but only with the help of police. Their prayers were constantly disrupted by derogatory calls from the ultra-Orthodox women, who shouted at them to leave the area and claimed they had no right to pray there. Ahead of next week's slated demolition of 9 homes in the settlement of Ofra, settlement forces have begun preparing for the residents' evictions. Today, the army set up roadblocks around Ofra, and police have conducted a series of preventative arrests of far-right activists whom they suspect will violently disturb the evacuation. Police fear many protesters will also try to barricade themselves in an empty structure in Ofra, similar to what they did earlier this month during the evacuation of a legal outpost of Amona. In February of 2015, the High Court ruled that residents of the 9 Ofra houses, which were built without permits on private Palestinian land, would be evacuated. The court originally ordered the homes to be demolished on February 8th of this year, but later granted a 1-month delay in order to give security forces more time to prepare for the evacuation. 17 babies hospitalized in the premature unit in Tel Aviv's Ichilov Hospital have tested positive for the vancomycin-resistant enterococci, or VRE, antibiotic-resistant strain bacteria. Hospital officials said none of the babies displayed any signs of illness, and 4 have been released home. The babies who contracted the intestine-attacking bacteria have been isolated from other babies in the ward. Details of the outbreak, reported in a Channel 1 exclusive, said that last week a baby was transferred from Ichilov to the Schneider Children's Hospital in Petach Tikva to undergo heart surgery. On arrival, tests revealed she had contracted the VRE bacteria. After being notified of the Schneider staff of the infection, Ichilov doctors discovered that 17 others had been infected. The wave of anti-Semitic attacks in the United States shows no signs of abating, with yet another Jewish cemetery being desecrated on Sunday, this time in Philadelphia. The Anti-Defamation League is offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of vandals who desecrated the Mount Carmel Jewish Cemetery. People who arrived at the cemetery on Sunday discovered that hundreds of tombstones had been smashed and overturned. Police investigating the vandalism noted that 2 nearby Christian cemeteries remained untouched. It is the second anti-Semitic incident in a cemetery in less than a week. Last Tuesday, rows of graves were damaged and headstones were knocked off in the Chesed Shel Emet cemetery in Missouri. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency in the Gaza Strip has suspended one of its employees who has been suspected of being elected to the Hamas political leadership. Chris Gunness, a UNRWA spokesman, said a decision was made to oust Suhali al-Hindi, the chairman of the UN Workers Union and principal of a UN elementary school in Gaza, after the organization received substantial information from numerous sources of his ties to Hamas. A report published on the website of Israel's coordinator of government activities in the territories, known as COGAT, says al-Hindi was elected to the Hamas political leadership in a secret vote earlier this month. The UN agency forbids staff members from holding political positions. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas called on the world to defend the two-state solution, saying it is the only way the Israeli-Palestinian conflict will be resolved. Addressing the 34th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva today, the Palestinian leader reiterated his support for a Palestinian state along the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. Abbas also spoke out against the ongoing settlement construction in Judea and Samaria and warned against moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Touting its military power, Iran's Navy is staging a large-scale military exercise in several locations, including the North Indian Ocean, the Sea of Oman, the Gulf of Aden, and Bab el-Mandeb. The country's Navy chief, Admiral Habibullah Sayari, said warships and helicopters are participating in the 2-day exercise called Vilayat 95 that began yesterday. During the drill, the Navy fired a laser-guided anti-submarine missile, as well as a newly manufactured cruise missile at mock targets. The country's Revolutionary Guards are not taking part in the drill, which is aimed at improving the Islamic Republic's readiness to combat threats. A sharp turn now to Hollywood, where last night's Oscar award ceremony provided one of the most embarrassing, but definitely most memorable moments in the 89 years of Oscar history.
Come on. La La Land.
I'm sorry.
Beatty tried to explain that he'd been given the wrong envelope.
Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture. Moonlight, Best Picture.
The producers of Moonlight, which eventually won the coveted award, found it difficult to move on, expressing much confusion. Prior to the onstage drama, the Oscar for Best Actress was given to Emma Stone for La La Land, and the Oscar for Best Actor was given to Casey Affleck for Manchester by the Sea. In a night filled with diversity, Oscars were also given to supporting actors Mahershala Ali for Moonlight and Viola Davis for the film Fences. 32-year-old director Damien Chazelle became the youngest person ever to win the prestigious Best Director award for his film La La Land. The Iranian film The Salesman took home an Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film. The award was received by Iranian-American space engineer Anousheh Ansari, on behalf of the Iranian director Afsar Farhadi, who boycotted the ceremony to protest Trump's travel ban. One Israeli startup was especially attentive at last night's Oscars. The company Takey analyzes social media to figure out what is trending for target audiences and predict who will win the Academy Awards. CEO Amit Avner says the technology uses artificial intelligence to measure the intensity of feelings of internet bloggers who discuss nominees. He noted that previous year's winners were those who triggered the most intense feelings with the majority of users. The company currently employs 60 people between Herzliya and the U.S. and has raised over $32 million in funding. And turning to entertainment here at home, the English-language light opera group of the Negev, Logon, is now performing the popular Broadway musical Annie around the country. The company's next performance is scheduled at the Nesher Theater on March 2nd, with subsequent performances scheduled throughout March in Modi'in, Jerusalem, Rehovot, Tel Aviv, and Netanya. The final performance will take place in the company's hometown of Beersheva on March 26th. Logon is the only English-language theater group in Israel whose ticket sales support local charitable organizations. Tickets are available at the company's website, www.negevlightopera.com. In financial news, share prices were down on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange today, and the shekel was up against most major foreign currencies. Here's a look at the late afternoon numbers. Turning to the forecast, the IBA weather team says tomorrow there's a chance of light rain with unseasonably high temperatures and strong easterly winds in the mountains. Here are the expected highs and lows for the next 24 hours. That's all for this newscast. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same channel, when Laura Cornfield will be here. Until then, I'm Yael Shear wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.